I feel like this one will either be done in 10, 15 minutes,
Yep.
or we're going to be an hour in and be like, no, we need another 2 or 3 episodes.
What is this? Episode 3?
We've done episode 0, episode
Yeah.
0.5, episode 1, episode 2A, and episode 2B. So this is officially episode 3. Like I said,
Officially
we're making it as
episode
hard as
3.
possible to get to the holy grail of 10 episodes. But we will do it.
We will do it. We will do it.
And that will automatically make us, it will put us in the top 10% of podcast content creators in history.
Ever. Yep.
That's an elite standing.
Do we get a certificate? Do we get a sticker?
I'm sure
Must be
big
a medal.
podcasts send you a plaque, don't they? For doing 10 episodes?
When we get YouTube famous, can we put it on the wall?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Good.
It's for like 100 views, right?
I have
100
no
views?
idea. Let's hope so.
I hope it's 100. Might be tough to get that many.
Not like 10K or whatever it is.
I think it's 1 million, isn't it?
I don't know. I wouldn't know.
I don't know. Whatever.
Crazy. Right, what are we talking about today, John?
Episode 3, we're talking about structure. I just think this is a conversation that always crops up with clients. And it crops up sometimes due to their frustrations, partly because my model is almost entirely unilateral. So we notice the differences left to right really significantly. And so that's kind of where we'll kick things off, I suppose, is the asymmetry of the body, the natural inherent asymmetry of the body, its implications on movement, and then how that can affect what you might expect to see. Not what you will see, but what you might expect to see. I think in the world of coaching, we think about the skeleton maybe a little bit, but we largely think about muscles. And our muscles are more or less, at least the big ones that we think about, symmetrical. And so we're always aiming for symmetry. We come from bodybuilding, we think symmetry. We do powerlifting and weightlifting where we want symmetrical movement as much as possible.
Yeah.
And we forget that the body is completely not symmetrical foundationally just because of our organ displacement. So we've got a completely different organ distribution on the right-hand side. So we've got a heavy liver over there. We've got 3 lobes of lung compared to 2. Correspondingly bigger diaphragm, so that's a muscular difference side to side, as the diaphragm is bigger on the right-hand side.
Yep.
The diaphragm's such an interesting structure, by the way. If you get a chance to look at it, it's like this weird swirl of muscle.
Oh, okay.
And it's very odd looking in the context of what we look at from the external perspective as being relatively symmetrical.
Yeah.
Now, what that means is our right-hand side of our bodies is heavier. And so if we're just stood at rest and we're centered, we're going to be shifted slightly to the right of our center of support.
Okay.
Our center of mass will be to the right of our center of support. So we're not going to be bang in the middle of our 2 feet, we're going to be slightly to the right. The moment we're increasing pressure or weight on one side, the inherent joint actions of that are compressive.
Right.
So we're seeing internal rotations. So if you stand entirely on your right foot, to do that with any type of balance or sustainability, you have to internally rotate at the hip in order to do that. And if you're not going to tip sideways, we need pronation of the foot, which is internal rotation of the foot. So our internal rotation measures are going to be typically better on the right. They're going to be worse on the left, just as that as a baseline. There's other factors involved with that. So I don't know if this is actually like a default for everyone, but I've heard and seen it that the left side of the pelvis is structurally ever so slightly bigger than the right side of the pelvis, which means that it sits slightly forward in space.
Okay.
And by and large, the further forward a joint moves forward relative to your center of support, the more compressed it is, the less space it has, and so the less movement is available.
Got you.
So the overall example of this is if you stand up on your 2 feet and you lean forward, you won't be able to squat very deep at all.
Yeah.
And it's not to do with muscles, it's not to do with dorsiflexion. It's the fact that you've compressed all the joints, you've run out of space, and then when you need more movement, there's no space available.
Yep.
And all you need to do for people like that is just bring their center of mass back, then you unlock all of their mobility.
Got you.
So that's an influence of structure on mobility without having to think about the behavior of tissues in terms of flexibility, extensibility. And that's one of the big misconceptions about training, full stop. Is you work with someone who's struggling with squat depth, and a lot of the time their center of mass is forward. And until they learn how to shift back, which is an expansive movement posteriorly,
Yep.
then they're going to really struggle to unlock any meaningful mobility. And they can stretch and stretch and stretch and not necessarily get any better
Yep.
until they restore that mobility, that center of mass management. From a rotational perspective, if the left side is slightly bigger and is rotated forward, it is forward. So we're going to see more compression on the backside of like the left half of the body, which is why most of the SIJ pain you're going to come across in people is going to be on the left-hand side. Something like 85% of the time.
Okay.
Then, because we can't just exist facing right, we can't just be Zoolander and never turn left, our upper bodies will then have to rotate back at some point.
Yeah.
So if that's happening, we'll see the opposite potentially happen at the rib cage, where the right side of the rib cage is going to be turned forward.
Yeah.
And that's where we will see more compression at the back side of the right rib cage. So tension underneath the shoulder blade, so like between the shoulder blade and the spine, so like rhomboidsy area.
Yeah.
Tension and pressure in there is really, really common and way more common on the right. So logic would say it's about 85%, but honestly, for that one, it's like 98% of the time.
Wow,
If
okay.
people have got tension under one shoulder blade, it's so commonly the right, way more commonly. Bringing it back to the weight distribution, if I'm standing most of my time with my weight on the right foot, then as I breathe, I've got all my weight through my right side rib cage. And so when I breathe and create expansion, most of that's going to get driven to the left. So it's like if you tape one side of a balloon and you blow into it, it will expand into the other direction.
Yeah.
What that means in terms of like neck and shoulders specifically is that my left trap has got, basically can sit into like a relaxed length, because as I breathe in, I've got all this expansion that elevates my shoulder, takes my shoulder upwards, but it's done so just with pressure rather than my trap having to pull up my shoulder.
Yeah.
It's supported and lifted rather than dragged and pulled.
Got you. Yeah.
That's not necessarily true on the right, because if I'm stood on the right and I'm compressed on the right and I'm not breathing as much into my right rib cage, my right shoulder is going to sit low,
Yeah.
and that's pulling loads of length into my trap. Because again, if I'm going to have an even eye line, I can't get dragged to the right and have my head on a tilt.
Yep.
I then have to do this to square up, which is basically taking my head towards my left shoulder,
Yeah.
which again lengthens that right trap and creates loads of tension. So right-sided tension on the traps, right-sided tension headaches, way more common than left-sided. And that's all just structural bias. The big implication of that is that if we're doing exercise that looks symmetrical to an external observer, it isn't. It can't be. So I still have these structural biases even as I try to appear symmetrical and go up and down in a straight line. It's like if I put a weight in one hand and I hold it in the exact same position as the other hand that isn't holding a weight, I have an asymmetrical muscular tension through my body. And then as I go up and down, that muscular tension will get reinforced over and over. So the only actual way to promote symmetry is to turn into one side as much as possible, and then do the opposite, turn into the other side as much as possible.
Yeah.
So because of these inherent biases, all human beings have like a natural posture and a natural twist. So our posture is sat back, internal rotation on the right. That's like a loaded position. Imagine we're throwing a punch. If I'm on my right-hand side and my weight's through my right foot, that makes me kind of want to throw a punch with my right hand.
Yeah.
We then have this rotational bias of dynamically turning towards the left. So counterclockwise turning is inherent to the human body. So people are often really surprised when they're right-handed and you give them a cable row and they're way stronger on the left. And they're like, but my left arm's not as strong as my right. It's like, right, but you're turning with the current of your body. There's also your body's 99% water per molecule, so it's very, very fluid. There is an internal fluid momentum. So some of it's turning one way, some of it's turning the other way, but the net fluid momentum is also counterclockwise, so it's turning you to the left.
Yeah.
So if you're working with that fluid momentum and just with the structural rotational bias of turning to the left, you're going to be stronger. And I haven't seen this, but it just makes logical sense to me. I think this is why most people are right-handed,
Okay.
is that I'm turning that way. So I'm punching with my right, I'm throwing with my right because I'm in the loaded position on the right,
Yeah.
and I can turn to the left to release it.
Yeah.
So the real mystery is actually why do left-handed people exist at all? And that's really odd, actually, because left-handed people still have all of these biases. But left-handed people tend to have better spatial awareness. and they are overly represented compared to the normative population in elite level sport.
Yeah.
I always think of that time when the three best fly halves in the world were Matt Gitto, Dan Carter, Johnny Wilkinson, and they're all lefties.
Wow.
And it's like, what are the odds of that?
Yeah.
Snooker's the best example. Very, very spatial awareness demanding sport. Possibly the most demanding sport in terms of spatial awareness. That's a debate for another time. The number of left-handed players in snooker is baffling. Like, if you look at the top 16 at any given time, like the minimum number of players you'll see that are left-handed is like 5 or 6, but sometimes you'll see 9, 10 left-handed players in the top 16, which makes no sense. And it's because they have better spatial awareness. And obviously we can talk about hemispheres of the brain, but I think a big part of it is that they exist with this bias that turns them left, but they're left-handed, so they also do turning to the right. So they end up naturally operating with both sides more symmetrical throughout their life.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah.
So that's a factor. You'll also see that all sports that have an inherent rotation built into the structure of the sport, so baseball, rounders, Olympic running around tracks, NASCAR races. I think, does F1 always go counterclockwise?
No, I don't think so.
NASCAR always does.
Yeah, NASCAR always does.
Ballroom
I don't
dancing
know.
always goes counterclockwise around the ballroom.
Yeah.
But they all go counterclockwise. So you run around the track counterclockwise. Because that's just the structural bias of the body is to keep turning counterclockwise. So yeah, that's how
Interesting. Yeah.
bony and organ structure dictate function. So it also means you'll see less internal rotation on the left most of the time.
Yeah.
And that's normal. So if you assess a client and they've got 5 degrees less internal rotation on the left, that's probably just completely normal. That doesn't mean, oh boy, we need to correct that.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of compression expansion model, it means that compressive tasks are better done on the right-hand side and expansion happens on the left.
Yeah.
So a great example of this is Usain Bolt. If you watch him run, he's very asymmetrical, especially in his warm-ups. He's got a very characteristic loping gallop in his warm-up.
Okay.
And I don't know if it's deliberate or strategic. I kind of assume it's not. I think it's just him getting going in the way that feels natural to him.
Yeah.
But he propels off his right, because that's compression, and the left side is all expansive and reaching, and then he just kind of supports his structure on the left and then gets quickly onto the right and propels himself again.
Wow.
So he's got this lopsided, loping strategy in his gait. I don't really know much about swimming, but apparently Michael Phelps does the same thing with his swimming.
Wow.
And he was always told, no, you need to be more symmetrical. And he's just kind of loped his way to 1.5 billion gold medals. So it worked for him. Usain Bolt also famously has a scoliosis. 85% of scolioses initiate to the right, a rightward turn, because that's the postural bias, and then it curves back and turns to the left. So that's just an exaggerated expression of the normative rotational bias of the human body.
Wow.
Is all that familiar to you? I know we've talked about bits of it.
Yeah, we've talked about bits of it for sure. I think that was the best you've ever told me, though.
Ooh.
I think because, it just made sense. Maybe that's because I've learned a lot more, maybe since we've been doing these podcasts and things are just clearing up for me. Because, like I said, we have these conversations like dotted around, don't we?
We're also putting dedicated time into, we know we're going to sit down and go through all of it.
Yeah.
So I'm not super conscious of trying to make it as quick as possible.
Yeah, no, it does. It makes complete sense. And again, it just reiterates things that I see and things that I've coached. And I'm like, okay, but I knew that, but maybe I didn't know where from. So
so
no, that makes sense.
So talking about like compressive tasks are better on the right than on the left. This is why we'll see very, very frequent characteristic approaches to a landmine step press.
Okay.
So people will step when they're doing like a right-handed press, and their weight's on the right, and they're going to press up with the right hand and step onto the left foot. They can do that fine. That's usually quite intuitive to them. When you then go left hand, you'll find that they start in the same rotational posture. So they'll start with the left shoulder forward, which is obviously dumb, but it's how their body feels. And then they run out of place to move into.
I've done this.
Yeah.
I know,
Because they've got nowhere to turn. And so you have to be very conscious with those people about making them deliberately turn the left side of their shoulder back, and same with the pelvis, turn the left side back. And it's funny because they might try it on their own without instruction think, oh, my left side's weak. And it's like, it's actually not as weak as you think.
Yeah.
It's just you're not using your obliques, you're not using your hips.
Yeah.
So you're just leaving your left arm
Just stiff arm
high
it.
and dry. Yeah, exactly. You just got to power through.
Yeah.
There's no fluid connection through
Yeah.
it. And again, like one of the best examples of this is throwing. So people who can just intuitively throw with their right hand, you'll notice the first thing they do is they drop and turn the right shoulder back and down.
Yeah.
And they're loaded there, and that's easy. Same with the hip. The left side, they think it's the arm. The arm's actually okay at doing a throwing motion. It just needs to be in the right position. So again, they do that type of throw, that kind of like a put.
Yeah.
They have to consciously turn to the left side to initiate that throwing pattern.
Okay.
It's very difficult for them. Now, this next thing is an observation from a client recently that is such a good observation. It's such a good extrapolation of that principle. I think we mentioned this on another podcast about how there are no good left-handed shot putters.
Yeah.
And it's because there are things that you can do left-handed that require expansion, but to throw a shot put, you need to coil down into the left as much as possible to then fire. And even if you're left-handed, you're still working against this big structural bias where you've just got more space in the left or in the left side of your thorax that you can't compress into. It's much easier to compress down into the right.
Yeah.
It's like the right side's more dense, the left side's sort of more spacious.
Yeah.
Spacious in terms of the contents, not spacious in terms of joint space. That's an important difference.
Yeah.
And so the position that would be required to have the best launch for a shot put is kind of just inaccessible on the left.
Okay.
That's not to say you can't get good at it, but you could never get as good as someone who's as good as you but right-handed.
High jump, not one I have ever coached. I haven't done it since I was in school. But I was just thinking, do they have to like compress to expand to get over there?
Yes, for sure.
Again, I'm just thinking like you always see them run the same way when they come into it.
I mean, obviously, most people are right-handed and right-footed, so you'll see that pattern more often or not. I don't think. Yeah, I don't know much about high jump.
I was just thinking like where, like sports where you have.
I think there'll be left-footed and left-handed jumpers, high jumpers.
I don't think I've ever noticed. I'm going to look out now.
That'll be an interesting thing to look up. Because when you find those exceptions, it's like, oh, that's interesting. But I don't think the compressive requirement is as intense as with a shot put.
No, absolutely not. No.
So you can get away with still having to compress to the left. I'm not saying it's impossible, just saying it can't be done to the same extreme.
Yeah.
And obviously much more of that comes from stiff, elastic bounce from the left.
Yeah.
So,
interesting. I'm now thinking about rugby and front row. And just like, if you're like a tight head, loose head, like if you're like leaning or you're pulling, aren't you, I suppose? So maybe it's not as compressive as shot, but I'm just thinking about what I know.
You'd be hard pushed to be like a left-handed loose head, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I think so. Interesting.
But a tight head is a bit more square, maybe.
Yeah.
So they're probably.
I've never played the front row, so I actually have no idea.
Nor do I. I'm a winger.
I'm too pretty for
I
the front
deserve
row.
to be abused for even speculating about the role of the front row.
Just have a cuddle, put the ball in.
Yeah, it's the easiest job on the pitch, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah.
My first position was hooker.
Was it really?
Yeah, which is just because I was short and small.
Oh, okay.
Which is dumb.
Yeah.
I always think first day of year 7, when they're picking positions, they should just line up the parents. Let's look at the parents and pick your position from that.
Yeah.
Because no one realised that I was like fast or agile. He's like, he's short, stick him a hooker.
Stick him a hooker will be fine.
Yeah. Tying this into more compression expansion model stuff, we should talk about a squat. So a squat is like a dumb exercise because you're intending to be symmetrical and you're not symmetrical.
Yep.
So when you see a hip shift in a squat, we see it as an error rather than as a fundamental strategy for like getting into a stronger position for your body.
Yep.
It might be inappropriate under loads of load, but that's how your body would, like if you were trying to create pressure to push yourself forward, you would turn.
Yeah.
And your body knows that, even if your brain doesn't. And so that's what it's trying to do when it's under a heavy squat. So it will turn to the right more often than not. So left-sided knee valgus and it's not even knee valgus. We'll
Get into
We'll
that.
get into that. The left knee tracking in towards the midline is much more common under a heavy squat than seeing it for the right. But it's not the left side internally rotating. It's the pelvis internally rotating towards the right leg, and the left leg's just following.
Yeah.
So the left knee or the left femur is not being pulled in by tight adductors. It's just following the pelvis's pursuit for more pressure by turning right.
Yep.
So this idea that we then need a glute that will pull the knee back out is ridiculous from that perspective, and it is just rubbish. If you want to become more symmetrical in your squat, you need to develop a left side pelvis that can tolerate better increases in pressure and that can turn into that side when it needs to be strong. And you can only fix that out of the pool, as they say. So I worked with a swimming coach. She was like, you can only really correct technique out of the pool. When you're swimming, you're swimming.
Yep.
You correct the technique out of the pool. So I always say that with squats, you have to correct the technique out of the pool
Yep.
when it's that specific issue.
Okay.
Because again, you're trying to find maximum compression. So you're going to turn towards the side that can tolerate it better, which is the right.
Yep.
And yeah, it's not to do with muscles. It's a little bit to do with muscles in the sense that your right side muscles will learn to tolerate that pressure better because of all the other factors of how bones and joints interact with pressure as well. But it's not the fact that the adductors are pulling the knees in or that the glutes need to pull the knees out. That's all just arbitrary bollocks. So that's the compression expansion side of things.
Yep.
Maybe we should talk about knees in the squat in general.
Yep.
Your knees come in to find an increase in pressure. So I think we mentioned on the previous one how long-term the adaptation that powerlifters will make is they will orient more into external rotation. And that's because they lose the space to come inwards. And so your body's always trying to come in to create more pressure.
Yep.
It's trying to get underneath its base of support. It's always trying to do that, even if it doesn't look like that's what's happening. Even if someone's really wide and their legs stay square, it's still an internal torque
Yep.
that is creating the pressure. And if you work with someone who's not been driven out to that wide compensation pattern, then when they put pressure into the floor, their knees will come in. It's a natural pursuit of pressure rather than adductors overpowering the glutes. And I've seen people miss squats because they're so intent on driving their knees out. And the sort of illusion of knees out is that your knees come in at the hardest part of the squat, which is around 90 degrees,
Yep.
which is the point of the maximum internal rotation of the hip. So the hardest part of the squat is when you get to your strongest position. The illusion is that then when you get past that point in a successful squat, your knees will orient back outwards because you're not just going to stand with your knees together at the top of a squat. So it looks like getting the knees out has created the success, but it's not. The knees coming in is what's gotten you through the hard part, and the knees come out because now you're at the easy part and you're coasting home.
Yeah.
That's what happens.
Yep.
And like I said, I've seen people miss squats because they're so intent on driving the knees out, they're taking themselves away from a stronger position with more pressure,
Yep.
and it's cost them the lift.
Got you.
And if they committed to, yeah, my knees are coming in, so what? They would have a better chance of getting through that sticking point and then
Yep.
finishing the squat.
Makes sense.
So the cue for knees out is also bollocks.
Bollocks.
That's probably a good time. Have you got time for one more? What,
Go
as in
on.
one more question.
Go on.
So this is our first fan question. Do we coach men and women differently?
Ooh. I'm gonna say I don't from a movement perspective, as in from an exercise from like getting them to execute the movement. I don't think I do.
Like you don't have one cue or one thing you want to see from a bloke that you don't see from
Actually,
from
blokes can't hinge. I don't know if that's fact or I'm just finding it, but I feel like I find it harder to get guys to hinge and move their hips back. I don't know if that's common. I don't know if it's just poor coaching. I don't know. But yeah, there has been times where we'll do.
Depends on age.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
There's probably psychological issues with that as well.
What, hinging?
just sticking your bum out.
Yeah.
Some people do
Yeah.
get really self-conscious
Okay.
about doing that.
Yeah. No, I never really thought of
Yeah.
that. I've got a rugby club, so bums out is common.
Yeah. Tower of Power. Here we go. Yeah.
I'm trying to think. I don't think so. I don't think I consciously do. I don't know if apart from the hinge thing that is jumping out at me.
That's interesting.
I don't know if I do. I think I have a different approach to coaching men and women.
Sure.
But I don't think when it comes to the exercises that I'm picking, no. But there are men that will lift much more than women.
Yeah.
But there are some women that can do a cable push press at 15 kgs, and I got a guy that can only do it at 10. So,
yeah,
my approach is different, but my approach is different for kids as well. But from exercise, movement, I don't care what you can lift or how you can do it. I'm just trying to get you to move better. That's my approach.
So I think the answer is the answer really is no, in the sense that you coach every single individual differently. So whoever comes in front of me, I'm responding to them, their situation, their compensations, their biases. Can they hinge? Can they not?
Yeah.
Like whatever. I'm responding to that as an individual. Like what I take from you, I doubt if you got a new male client coming in, I doubt you'd be like, right, well, you suck at hinging, so let's work on that.
Yeah, no.
You need to see them as an individual before you make that decision.
Yeah, 100%.
So that's what it comes down to. Everyone's an individual. You will see specific biases more often in females and more often in males.
Okay.
So like probably the most talked about one in terms of strength and conditioning coaching is the Q angle. So basically the angle of the femurs. So wider hips relative to their structure, and so therefore more knee valgus and significantly higher rate of ACL tears in women than in men. So if you're coaching a big group of females, you might approach that differently. So if you're coaching a female rugby team compared to a male rugby team, you might, before the start of the season, think, programming wise, I am going to intentionally put more stuff in that might be seen as an ACL preventative measure. You might do that more proactively, working with a big group. But working with an individual, again, doesn't matter. You assess them as an individual. You might see a guy who's got loads of knee valgus, and you might think that he's an ACL risk, and so you're going to work about that. You might find a woman who's very straight up and down and think they are not at any more risk than any dude. So not going to change what they do there. So the research into the differences between men and women, physically, mentally, emotionally, all of the above, is interesting. But if you're coaching individuals, it's completely irrelevant. Doesn't matter at all.
No, I think, and I think you, again, similar to me, you have a wide range of clientele. And everyone is treated as an individual. Like you walk through the gym door, and from the moment that your session starts, you're like my priority for that session. Approach wise, it will just be conversations are different for sure. Things that we're talking about, like I don't talk about menstrual cycles very much with dudes.
We should probably touch on that in terms of coaching men and women. So this is a great example of that, where you might read some research that says that the menstrual cycle has an impact on strength, but you would never program based off that information.
No.
You would only program based on the individual response. Now, at the moment, there's loads of research coming out saying, oh, the menstrual cycle has absolutely no impact upon strength performance. And I wouldn't be doing any of my female clients any justice to ever pay that any attention at all.
It's a load of rubbish. Well,
for some women, it makes a small difference. For some women, it makes a massive difference. But it's pretty consistent that it does make a difference. And that in that time of the month, women aren't as strong, and actually more often than that, they're less coordinated. And so that has a bearing on strength. So even if you can produce as much force, if you're not delivering it as efficiently into the ground, then it will have the emergent effect of you're not as strong. So you might get some pockets of the literature that say that actually the biggest difference is like mood and emotion, and the implication of that is that, well, you're physically just as strong as you were last week, so just get on with it. That's ridiculous, because it doesn't matter if you have a consistent mood like decrement each month consistently. That will impact upon your strength. If you as a dude, if I come in a really good mood, I will probably perform better than if I come in a less good mood.
Yeah.
And if that's consistent, it's consistent.
Yeah.
And if it's not, it's not. Like,
Yeah.
again, it comes back to the individual.
100%. Yeah, and I have, again, mostly women, and they all present differently during the various parts of their cycle. Some months you feel better, and it might be because of, it could be from external factors as well.
Yeah.
The time of year, and like all
a
those
period
sorts
doesn't
of
happen
things.
in a vacuum.
No, exactly. Yeah. So, yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, for research to come out and say, or like people are saying, like it doesn't have any effect on your strength, I can't get behind at all. I really disagree with it.
It's one of those like really frustrating just characteristics of the time that we live in, where we put so much emphasis on what the research says. And we're almost like conditioned to believe the studies instead of what you see with your own two eyes. And that's very frustrating.
Very much so.
That wraps up our menstrual chat.
Yeah, I'm surprised it's taking this long, John, to get to menstrual cycles.
Yeah, it's my favourite topic.
It's my favourite topic.
It's the first thing I talk about with all my clients, male or female.
I was going to ask you a question. Obviously, now having one child, I have noticed it with parents and like where they hold their children. Have you ever noticed that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, big time.
And
most women will hold their child with their left hand on their left hip.
Yeah.
Because then they can do stuff with their right hand.
Yeah.
And that means that they'll have like a pushed out left side of the pelvis.
Yes, yeah.
Which is also generally a more easy move for them to do.
Got you.
That pelvis shifts out more commonly.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, and it's so because we were just talking about structure then, and I was going to say, is it because of structure that we have that bias, or the bias is because we're mostly right-handed people and we're using our right hand to continue?
So you don't know.
No.
Both things are at play.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where I don't know how you'd ever set up a study to measure something like that. And I think there are lots of questions like that where I can have my own answer, my own opinion. Very much like with I said earlier, this is why people are right-handed. It's like, I don't know that for sure. There's going to be lots of influences, neurological, stuff that I've not even considered as to why people are right-handed, but it makes logical sense to me as to why that would be. Same thing with this, like both of those biases make sense. Which one's driving that as an overall behavior? I don't know. Behavior is really complicated.
Yeah,
it's emergent from millions of variables interacting. Some things look like they have a big impact, others a very small impact, but they all go together into the pot.
Yeah, and I think sometimes I've put emphasis on maybe with clients who are like females, specifically mothers, who, we talked about having kids and like which side you hold them. It's always 90% of the time it's the left. That could explain this compensation because you've had two kids and you're, however many years of holding them on one side, or working with childminders who work with small people all day. So yeah.
A really interesting thing about like hip shifts posturally, when you point out, pressure differences between right and left.
Yeah.
Most people will, like if they're putting all their weight onto one leg and like dropping their hip out to the side, most people will still do that on the right, but the hip drops out differently. It doesn't go as far sideways, it tends to go backwards.
Okay.
So if you're a right hip stander in what I call sassy hip position, it's very likely that your right butt cheek is moving back relative to the left to accommodate that position.
Okay.
If you are one of the less common people and you're a left hip sassy hip stander, that hip probably goes forward or to the side. And again, if you're holding your baby, you don't want them tucked behind you.
No.
You want them on the front.
Yeah.
So from a hip perspective, if you want to hold your baby with your hand, which works in front of your body, the left hip is going to find that space much more easy to occupy.
Interesting.
And it's really fun. I remember I did I was doing a rehab session for a guy, and he brought his girlfriend along, and she was just kind of sitting in the background, just kind of just hanging out basically. And I was explaining to him about this difference, because it was affecting his performance, that he had this pelvic asymmetry. And I was explaining like what's more likely and why. And she was sat there in the chair, and I could see her like shifting and moving her pelvis. And I'd said, like, most people stand with their hips to the right.
Yeah.
And he goes, yeah, I do. And she went, I don't. And I was like, yeah, you probably go forward to the left. And she stood up and she was like, oh my God. And I said, if you try and do the opposite, it will feel super weird. So if you try and sit into sassy hip position with your left butt cheek back, it will feel very weird and very contrived. Equally, if you do it on the right, it will feel very weird. And it's just funny that there are these positions that are completely asymmetrical, very characteristic. We probably do them every day. They feel completely normal. And then the exact same position, but just flipped 90 degrees or whatever, feels completely bizarre. And it's only when you give people the opportunity to explore those corners that they realize how asymmetrical they are. Now, that's not to like demonize asymmetry. It'd be like, see, look, this is why you're fucked. This is why you're in so much pain. It's like, no, now we've identified a blind spot physically, and it's going to be really easy. Like, let's say someone's got left sacroiliac joint compression and it's just really persistent no matter what they do, and they can't turn into their left pelvis and drop their left butt cheek back. It's like, cool, well, do I know for a fact that being able to do that is going to solve your SIJ pain? No. Is it going to make a positive impact? Very likely, yes. And so step one, let's learn how to do that.
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, when you learn to do that, it does solve all of the problem.
So interesting, yeah, okay.
I mean, that's like, one of the things that's interesting about coaching is that it's interesting to know all this stuff. It's interesting to know the biases. It's interesting to know the structure, but you don't need to. No. So if you've listened to this podcast as a coach and you're like, oh, cool, that's interesting, but I'm not going to remember all of it. No. You don't need to. All it is giving you a likelihood of what you're going to see. But again, it comes back to what we've said multiple times. Each person's an individual. You'll see people with better hip internal rotation on the left. I suppose there is something to take away, which is that most of the time when you see people who present the opposite way from that expectation, there are secondary layers of compensation that have gotten them there. So it's not normally like, oh, you just naturally have more hip IR in the left. It's like, no, they have got a very sneaky strategy for demonstrating what looks like IR on the left, but it's probably still not. Okay. That's hard to identify though. So that's the only reason that knowing this would make a practical difference. But if you've got a good eye for what you're seeing and you can assess if someone's moving relatively and where they're putting their pressure, all you need to do is give people the capacity to move in different ways. And if they can't do something, you teach them how to do it. And if they can't do this other thing, teach them how to do it. It doesn't matter if that fits the bias or not. Yeah. Improve the individual's capacities and you'll solve a lot of problems.
Should we end there?
I think we should end there.